What happens in the sky affects life down here on Earth. The celestial compass shows you how and guides your way with astrology you can use from professional astrologer Kathy Biehl. Every episode features her light-hearted, practical forecasts and navigational tips, blended with humor, optimism, and a love of patterns, symbolism, and pop culture references. Kathy translates technicalities into concepts that apply to real life. You'll learn how the current moment ties to where we've been, from the recent past to cycles that last happened years ago, and get a look at where we're heading. And much more, from special topics to special guests. The Celestial Compass, enlightening, entertaining, and empowering. Here's your host, Kathy Biehl.
Greetings, Earthlings. This is Kathy Biehl of EmpowermentUnlimited.net with another spin of the Celestial Compass. Before we get into the topic, which is eclipses, I want to update the May forecast for you with a reminder that you can find the full forecast at OMTimes.com and also at my site, EmpowermentUnlimited.net. There's going to be a big turning point in the way things are going a little bit later in the month. Right now, we are just barely pulling out of eclipse season. We'll continue to feel the effects of the eclipse for quite a while. Mercury is retrograde until the middle of the month, and about the time that he goes direct, Jupiter enters the sign of Taurus for the first time in 12 years, and it will be in Taurus for a year, not ducking back into the sign of Aries. And eventually, or within a couple of days, we should be feeling the energy starting to shift into the ground, not shaking quite so much, but not immediately on impact. Because as soon as Jupiter changes signs, it is going to make a square, which is a challenging aspect to Pluto at the very first degree of Aquarius, where it has been since the end of March, giving us a glimpse of what the next couple of decades are going to be like. So if you've been reading about or hearing about this big change coming with Pluto in Aquarius, and you've been looking at your own personal life and saying, well, I don't see what this is going to be, I suspect that Jupiter squaring that Pluto is going to make it cartoonishly large, and you will see, oh, wait a minute, this is where change is coming for me. And right around that time, we have, very soon after that, the new moon in Taurus, which starts to plant very solid long-term growth seeds and starts to encourage slowing the general vibe down with yet one more little disruptive move, because Mars, which rules our energy, is moving into Leo and starting to keep us from just deciding we're going to sit on the couch and eat potato chips and stare at our computer screens forever and not move. In Leo, Mars is going to be very energizing and want us to get moving and do a lot of things. And as it does that, it's going to be in a challenging aspect to both Jupiter and Pluto, and you will feel things setting up in you. There could be some very angry people around you. It's not a very long-lasting influence, but it is teeing up what the middle of June is going to be like. Just keep that in the back of your mind. And the middle of June is going to start helping us. We're going to start processing and moving forward on what the recent eclipses have meant to us. Okay, so it's been a very tumultuous few weeks because of a solar eclipse at the very end of Aries and a lunar eclipse toward the middle of Scorpio with Uranus in the mix. So I have invited to discuss what is going on with these eclipses an astrologer whose whose moon forecasts I have found to be extremely insightful. And so we're welcoming back Andrew Ifandis from Athens, a certified astrologer and author known for his, what was my word, insightful consultations and accuracy in predictions. He has 2 certificates in astrology with distinction from Kepler College of Astrological Studies in Washington, where he continues furthering his skills, focusing on the comparison of astrological traditions and the application of various astrological methodologies. Welcome back, Andrew.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you for this opportunity to give me to talk and to inform our audience about what's going on. And of course, I would like to thank our OMTimes about this session that we're having.
You're very welcome. People were, the last time you were here last year, I got some very, very nice feedback because your perspective really does, it's just a very interesting one. This year, we have an unusual situation in that we're wrapping up one eclipse family involving the signs of Taurus and Scorpio, and we're starting another eclipse cycle involving the signs of Aries and Libra. I personally see this as going from issues of what we own and how we share to issues of who we are and how we coexist with other people. Have you thought about this shift? What are your thoughts on what we're doing? Or if you want to start with something even more basic, hold on a second. What do you see as the importance of eclipses?
Eclipses are very important in astrology because in reality they are the catalysts for evolution and for change. As we all know, we have the new moons and the full moons that happen each month, and the new moon is, planting a seed, wanting to start something new, while the full moons have to do with releasing emotions, or they illuminate some things within our emotional self. But 2 times within the year, in periods that are 6 months one from the other, these new moons and full moons are eclipses, because these are the times where Earth and the Sun and the Moon are aligned. And eclipses could be seen as potent and most powerful lunations. They are powerful new moons and they are powerful full moons. So what eclipses want is we to address some of the things that are going on with our lives. They push us to have a new perspective on things, and they also push us to release things that do not serve us. So they're very important.
My experience has been that they bring issues up on particular areas of life for us to review them and revisit them, and under the solar eclipses, update or upgrade the role that those issues play in our lives, and under the lunar eclipses to get revelations about what might have been going on that we haven't seen, and then to release and to end. They're big endings. Would you agree with that? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And of course, it depends. Where the eclipse is falling on the personal horoscope of each person. Mm-hmm. Not all eclipses are dramatic. One eclipse may be aiding one person. The same eclipse may be helpful to one person, while at the same time may be dramatic or bring some really hard challenges to another person. It all depends on your personal chart. But the eclipses have a thematic, and we're going to discuss about the thematic of these eclipses.
So what have you observed being the themes of the eclipses that we've been under for the past couple of years in the signs of Taurus and Scorpio?
The past couple of years were difficult years. We have had 2020 with the conjunction of Saturn and Pluto, and we all know how it came out with the COVID-19 and the restrictions. And then we had 2021 and 2022, where along with eclipses that fell on the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, we have had a challenging square between Saturn and Uranus. Saturn was in Aquarius, and Uranus still is in the sign of Taurus. So there was a shift in stability, and there was a clash between the old and the new, and all this challenged relationships and the economy, of course.
Right.
Now we are in 2023, and we're having 4 eclipses. 2 of them are happening on the Taurus-Scorpio axis, and 2 of them are happening in the Libra-Aries axis. Eclipses tend to be in the same polarity of the zodiac signs for about one year and a half. So what happens now is that in 2023 we'll have this mixed energy between Aries-Libra and Taurus-Scorpio, while in the next year 3 of the 4 eclipses will continue to be on the Aries-Libra axis. So I think that the theme of the 4 eclipses is a change from something that is fixed, either ourselves, some ideas that we may have, some relationships that we may be in, and the shift is towards a more dynamic expression of ourselves. We want to build something new. We want to start something new. There is cardinal energy in 2 of the 4 eclipses that will continue on to 2024. So it's a shift from stability to something new. But it is not an easy shift, as we're going to see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you pay much attention to the signs, to what the signs rule that the eclipses are in? What you've described right here has been like the ones we're going out of have been in the fixed signs, and now we're going into ones that are in cardinal signs, which set things in motion. But do you have any specific thoughts on Taurus and Scorpio as signs?
Yes, surely. The eclipses that happen in Taurus-Scorpio are eclipses in a polarity that has to do with our physical and sentimental sense of safety. Taurus is the builder of the zodiac. It is a sign that rules our values, our resources, the economy, and the general idea of how we feel safe. While opposite, Scorpio is exactly the same things, but not on a material level, on a sentimental level. Do we get the attention we need from our partners? Do we feel safe? Is there emotional security? Do people trust us? Do we trust people? Can we get trusted so we can have credit from a bank, for example? Am I going to be someone who can be trusted in order to get back love and money? So the eclipses that are happening now are wanting to change this axis into the other one, between Aries and Libra, where we are not so concerned with our values and how people see us, our safety, and in a physical way and in an emotional way, and we tend to express ourselves more easily. We want to be more assertive. We want to be more independent. This is the Aries part that comes into play now. We want to be more individualistic, and we want to start new things. We want to move on from the stability and to start new things. Taking into consideration how we will do it without disrupting or without having an effect on other people, or without this having an effect on our relationships. This is the Libra part. Mm-hmm. So it's a gradual change from a safety to a new sense of identity. The change from the first axis to the second axis.
That definitely, yes, and along with that, there's the fixed axis wants to hold on to what is there. Taurus and Scorpio like to hold on to their toys, their possessions, and their big issues about are they going to share or not. Aries doesn't necessarily think about other people. It just acts impulsively. There's a natural energy or fire or life force that comes out, and then maybe they stop and go, oops, what have I done? And the challenge with that is to realize that there's somebody else in the equation, Libra, and, did you just drive your bulldozer over another person, or do you have to sit here and remake what the agreement is going to be? So it is a very, very different dynamic. And what you're describing or what you've been talking about seems to me to speak to a characteristic I've noticed that is different between these two eclipse families. Most of the eclipses that we've been under in the signs of Taurus and Scorpio have been lunar eclipses, and most of the eclipses in the Aries and Libra family that we're moving into are solar eclipses. What does that say to you?
That's a very interesting observation there, Kathy. And it tells me one thing, and I will explain why it tells me this thing. We have to be something new. Each one of us has to be something new. Because the solar eclipses that are in reality new moons are in the Aries sign, or the Libra sign. So we have to be something new in regards how we see ourselves, what we want to start, where our action, our energy is directed. And we have also to be ourselves in how we relate to other people. So the new moon eclipses tell us that we have to plant the seeds within 2023 in order to become something new. While the lunar eclipses that still happen in the Taurus-Scorpio axis tell us how we can sentimentally absorb the change that we want to achieve. What does this mean within? Are we feeling that we can safely move on? We can safely do a change? Is this change going to affect relationships? Do we want our relationships to change? Because we might be in some relationships that are not so good for us. So it's a play between having a new sense of identity and creating a new self and new relationships against how this is going to affect our resources, our sense of stability, and how we feel inside. So we have first to address some inside issues with these eclipses. I would say that all four eclipses for 2023 have a general title that says a rush and a push, and finally the land will be ours. But we have to address our shadow first. We have to address our inner complexes first, and to become something new. They are a cycle of becoming for me, these four eclipses, dear Kathy.
And then it's not a coincidence that Uranus, near the center of the sign of Taurus, has played a role. It was directly conjunct last November's lunar eclipse in Taurus, and it is still close, this time with the sun, in May's Scorpio lunar eclipse. So doesn't that add to what you're describing as you can't just settle in and stay comfortable in the way things have been with that Uranian influence? Something is disrupting and making it so uncomfortable that maybe you look at something or something comes to the surface, or maybe it's in your cells. I don't know. How have you observed the role of Uranus in this?
First of all, let me tell you that I totally agree with this observation, and it is exactly this dichotomy, I would say, because we have the eclipses in the sign of Taurus that will also have Jupiter during 2023, and the North Node also is in the sign of Taurus, and this tells us that these eclipses want us to go forward, to move forward. The North Node is, our destiny. We move towards to the destiny. We move towards to, and we have Jupiter there, and we will be having the Sun there, as happens in today's eclipse. So we want to move to stability by creating something new, and to feel safe within our relationships, as I told before, because of the shifting of the axis to the Aries-Libra. And we are having Uranus, the planet of awakening and of change and of sudden change and surprises and of disruption in the sign of Taurus. So we have stability and we have unpredictability at the same time. And that is the difficult part of these eclipses. Mm-hmm. Because in order to move on and to create something new or to feel stable, we'll have to understand that everything around us is changing in a very quick pace. It is not a coincidence that we're having these eclipses right now with Uranus in Taurus that rules the monetary system, the economy, goods, and we're having the economy all around the world not being so stable, and especially in the US where we're having these banks that are having these problems. This is the Uranian energy. And in a personal level, this means that in order to feel more stable and safe, there will be tension inside. That is what Uranus will bring. And we have to pass the tension and to focus on the awakening of Uranus. What all these things try to tell us. how am I going to be something new? What I have to release, the Scorpio side, in order to become something new. So the energy of Uranus is both positive and negative, and we as individuals, we always have to somehow balance the energy of the eclipse and try to have the energy work towards the best for ourselves, because we all have free will. So the eclipse is the energy, and we, with our free will and how we're trying to navigate the energy, we can create our future. That's how I see it.
And with and one, I guess, gift of the presence of Uranus where it is that we can't stay stuck. We'll just feel uncomfortable. It's almost like there's an electrical impulse hitting us, and if you try to settle in, something's always tapping on you saying, this doesn't feel right, time to do something different.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I have the next questions I want to talk about are actually fairly big, so we're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we have even more interesting ways to look at what the eclipses are bringing this year. So hang on, everyone.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Want help with your own celestial compass? Visit my site, empowermentunlimited.net, for Astro Insight forecasts for each week, month, and new and full moon. Want to explore the personal impact? Make a decision? Understand another person? It is possible. Click the Services tab to book a personal session with me. That address again, empowermentunlimited.net.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for summer break
because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time landing a job
and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Back to Celestial Compass. This is Kathy Biehl. We're talking about eclipses today with Andrew Ifandis. And before the break, there was the consensus here is that we're moving into a new way of being, essentially, that we're moving out of settled ways of the way we have felt safe and into creating something new for our lives and in our relationships. And what I'd like to talk about a bit now is the interesting nature of the planets that are ruling this year's eclipses. In April and May, we have a solar eclipse in Aries, ruled by Mars, and a lunar eclipse in Scorpio, ruled by Pluto, or in traditional astrology, Mars. And then in October, we have a solar eclipse in Libra, ruled by Venus, and a lunar eclipse in Taurus, ruled by Venus. Do you have thoughts on the shift or the change or evolution from eclipses in very powerful, almost like assertive, aggressive energies, and then moving to eclipses ruled by Venus?
This in my opinion could play is having effect in two ways. That is why I'm saying that these eclipses are a new sense of identity and something new, because in the first two eclipses we have Mars ruling them, and Pluto, if we consider Pluto the modern ruler. And this means that we have to act. We have to act in order to make the change, or to find the energy or the courage to move away from something that we have to move away from. And in the eclipses that Venus is the ruler, what is the thing that we need is to have a set of values and to understand what our value is. So this is in a psychological level how the two rulers play. Now, if we also take into perspective that Mars and Venus are not going to have an aspect between them as they move through the sky up until, if I remember correctly, somewhere around the end of October and start of November, that they're not making an aspect, because Venus will try to catch up with Mars, but then on July, Venus will turn retrograde into the sign of Leo. So they are not making any aspects. And that in astrology means that there is not a flow of energy between the feminine and the masculine, or between the action and the value. So this means that while the eclipses are being ruled by these two planets, it is not easy to have the change into the level of relationships, man and woman, masculine and feminine, or into the level of what I want to do and how I value myself in order to do it. And this will also play, I think, in the global chessboard, because Mars is war and Venus is peace or diplomacy. And since we're having eclipses in Libra at the end of the year, I think that the situation with the war in Ukraine and other parts of the world that are having hostilities will not be resolved. So having the two planets ruling the eclipses without them making any aspect to each other is what makes the eclipses want us to do things, to try to do things, but us not being able to do them, or not being so easy to do them. That's how I see it.
Do you think that the April and May eclipses ruled by Mars and Scorpio might be a little more tumultuous or personally difficult, and that once we get into Libra ruled eclipses that they might be a little easier, or am I being overly optimistic here?
You're right, because the last two eclipses are much more easier than the first two eclipses. Mm-hmm. If someone studies the charts, the last two eclipses are the final stages of this becoming that plays on throughout the year. Still, there are some things that we have to pay attention, but they are much more easier the last two eclipses. So I totally agree with you.
So here's a question, and I didn't throw this at you before, so it's if this is too off the cuff, please let me know. But as soon as Mars moves into Leo, it's going to start moving toward the degree of last November's Taurus lunar eclipse and May's Scorpio lunar eclipse. It's going to hit the Scorpio one first because it was slightly earlier. So in the middle of June, we have Mars moving into what's basically going to be a T-square to those eclipse points. Do you pay attention to things like that?
Yes, all astrologers pay attention to this because when we're having a planet, and if this planet especially is Mars, that is on the degree by square where a previous eclipse had occurred, this means that the eclipse is triggered somehow.
Right.
This means that all the energy of the eclipse is now coming into the fore because Mars is pouring the energy outwardly. So the two eclipses, today's eclipse, actually we're on an eclipse day, they're going to be activated during the period that you mentioned. And also, I would say that because we're having Pluto in Aquarius in 0 degree, we're going to have a T-square on the 21st of May. When Mars will be on 0 degree Libra, it will opposite Pluto in 0 degree Aquarius, and at the same time, Jupiter will just have entered Taurus, so Jupiter will be at 0 degree of Taurus. So we'll have a T-square between Mars, Jupiter, and Pluto on 0 degrees of the fixed signs in 21st of May. For me, this might be a more difficult date than when in the period that on June that Mars will activate the eclipses. We have to pay attention to that day too.
To explain to people who are listening, we're recording this before the air date. So when you hear that there's an eclipse today, it was eclipse on the day that we're recording. I just want to clarify that. So it seems to me that the T-square to Jupiter on the 19th and then Mars triggering the eclipse points in June both seem like times when dealing with what the eclipses have meant to you personally could be pretty unavoidable. There will be a motivation to, oops, this has happened. What am I going to do with this? Yeah. Yep. Okay, then there's one other very interesting connection between the Taurus-Scorpio and the Aries-Libra eclipses this year that you have pointed out to me, and that is a constant square of Pluto to the nodes, first with Pluto in Aquarius to the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio, and then as Pluto goes back into Capricorn in June, it will then square the nodes when they move into Aries and Libra. Can you explain what that's likely to do?
Yes, to show us our audience to understand it. When we're having an eclipse, what we're having is either a new moon or a full moon that is happening very close to two astrological points that are called North Node and South Node. These are the points where the path of the moon is crossing the path of the Earth and the path of the Sun. So all three paths converge, so we're having the eclipse. Now, the astrological symbolism of the nodes is the path of evolution for us personally. And the nodes are moving backwards through the zodiac, making a full circle in 18 and a half years. So it is important that we stress during our conversation that the nodes are now changing from Taurus-Scorpio to Aries-Libra. If that was only the case, that would mean that, okay, there is a change, an evolutionary change that we try to accomplish, that we want to happen, or that fate will bring to us. It would be just that, a change. Now, in 2023, all of the eclipses, all of the four eclipses, are having, as you said, Pluto squaring the nodes. So this means that Pluto is affecting this change. How does Pluto affect this change? Pluto, as we know, is the planet of transformation, of death and rebirth, of deep psychological complex issues, and of power. So, having a challenging aspect to the two nodes throughout the four eclipses, it means that in order to have the change to happen, we have to address some issues because the aspect is challenging. And we have to take action towards addressing these issues and after having addressed these issues. We have to take action in order to transform. So what do we have to do? We have to look deep into the shadows of the psyche. We have to ponder if our relationships are having Plutonian themes, abuse, jealousy, power games. We have to see and to understand if what we're trying to achieve, this new thing that we're trying to achieve, this new identity, this new endeavor, is ethical in a sense. Because Pluto is power, but it is also destruction if you're not ethical. So, the square of Pluto to the two nodes brings a more deep and psychological issue on the transformation that the eclipses are trying to achieve. That's why I said that it is a rush due to the Mars and the Aries signs and the push. And the push is that we have to push ourselves. We have to push through the layers of the psyche. We have to address the issue. We have to make the transformation. We have to understand that change has to happen and to pass also the tension that Uranus is giving from the sign of Taurus onto all of us. So we have to address tension, we have to address everything in our psyche, and we have to do it in an ethical way or to move away from dark places in order to accomplish the change. It is a test of the universe. The universe is testing us with these eclipses. That's why Pluto is there, both on the global level and both on the personal level.
Oh, you certainly see it on a collective level. I would agree with that completely. I keep hearing trite phrases in my head as you describe them. One of them is, you can run, but you can't hide. And another one is, resistance is futile. So there's an inevitability in this, isn't there? Because of Pluto. I mean, who can outrun Pluto? Nobody, really. It'll find you. It finds you while you're sleeping. You know, you wake up and Pluto's been in your psyche and screwing with you. Another piece I think is fascinating with this is, all right, Pluto has been at 0 degrees. It was at 0 degrees Aquarius at both of the eclipses in April and May. And on June 11th, it goes back into the end of Capricorn. It goes from 29 degrees to 27 and it will be in Capricorn during the October eclipses. What I find fascinating is Pluto is going to retrograde back to degrees that it occupied in the earlier parts of the Taurus-Scorpio eclipse family. There's a connection here. Like we get to go back over what we were already working on, almost like something's being dredged up from an even deeper level, maybe. Am I making too much out of this? Would you agree with this?
And this is an interpretation that will come into play, of course. And also, Pluto from the very first degrees of Aquarius, or from the fixed signs, because if we're having a planet on the first degree of Aquarius, it is opposing the first degree of Leo and is squaring the first degrees of Scorpio and Taurus. That's why we're talking about degrees that are affecting the fixed signs. As we said in the beginning, the previous year eclipses were all in the fixed signs. So now we're changing from a fixed mentality, a stable situation, or a rigid state of things into something new. We want to change. We want to create new things. And Pluto, returning back to these degrees, is helping, in a sense, with this shift from the fixed to the cardinal energy, because it will destroy, in brackets, it will destroy what has been fixed and is not serving us any longer. It will push for the transformation. It will give us the psychological pressure. I have to do this. I have to create what I want to create. I want to be independent. I want to have my business, to start my business. Whatever we want to create with these eclipses, Pluto is, in a sense, is also going to help us do it, because it will destroy anything that is fixed and holding us back.
That can be frightening for people to hear.
Oh, if Pluto destroys a relationship that is abusive, or if Pluto is destroying some fixed ideas that we may be having, that I cannot be a freelancer. I have to keep working for this company where I'm not happy. This is not bad. Mm-hmm. This will be good. But the thing is that this change, because Pluto is squaring, will not be difficult. It will not be easy. Within all of the thematic of the eclipses is that we first have to accept change and change within by addressing our shadow, or by addressing everything that keeps us back, and then we can create our new selves onto when we are inside 2024. I see Pluto, as a demolition wreck ball that blasts everything that is not serving us any longer.
Do you have advice that you give to your clients about ways that they can address their shadow?
How to address our shadow? First of all, we have to see it. We have to be honest with ourselves, and to see where what we think or how we react or what we want, what it is in reality. For example, in the case that someone wants to be a freelancer and leave a job, or is not happy in a job. Why this? Why do I feel like this? Is it that I am doing something in the work environment that creates this tension, that creates these power games? Or is it the others? How can I be more open and more honest in my relationships with my co-workers or with my boss? Where is my shadow? Is it how I feel and how I react with these people, or it is a more existential issue because I never wanted to have this work from the beginning, to do this job from the beginning, and I want something new. So first of all, we have to address the issue. We have to see it clearly. Then we have to be honest with where is it that we are not playing fairly. And this will give us the power to accept what will happen. Because what will happen will be for our own good. If I lose the job, if I get fired, it will be for my own good. In the case that I was not, reacting in a good way to other people. It will be good for me if it is really an existential issue for me to do this freelancing thing. It will be good for me now that I see who am I and what I want to do. So it's okay. Leave it behind. So we have to see clearly, to address the issue, to accept ourselves, and then to try to be more ethical, and this will give us the empowerment of Pluto and the transformation of Pluto.
So it sounds like this particular eclipse experience offers the potential to really get to know who you are and to live more honestly in congruence with that.
I think that the first eclipse that we have had on 20th of April raised such issues in many people. And the last eclipse that we'll be having on 28th of October is the key, because that eclipse is having Jupiter opposing Sun and Mercury, and Jupiter, is expansion, but also is ethos, how we are ethical, and we don't want to be greedy on that eclipse. We don't want to be, I want everything and I want it now. So the first eclipse raises the issues and makes us to address the shadow or the existential things that we're having inside.
Hi. All right. So you were saying the first eclipse. I'm sorry. We had a little Mercury retrograde moment here.
Sorry about this. I don't know how it's happening. The phone went off.
Right. Okay. I was afraid maybe your battery died. Well, I tell you what. We've reached the end of the hour as it is, so I'm just going to use this as a nice wrapping up point. And thank you very much for your time. Would you please let people know where they can find you? What's your website?
My website is www.cosmosofastrology. Written without spaces, Cosmos of Astrology. People can find me there, and also can find me on Facebook, Andrew Ifandis. They can find me there, and I would be very pleased to address any issues that anyone would like to ask me in a consultation.
And you have a newsletter, and I thank you so very much for being with us. Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. Thank you, OMTimes, for this opportunity.